So, as we work to wrap up 2025 at the end of this month, we have Nintendo rolling into 2026 along with Sony and Microsoft with a pretty big challenge ahead. But since Nintendo is still, in the first year of launching a new platform, it does seem like they are the ones with the biggest challenge right now, especially to navigate a market that is becoming increasingly difficult to be in because of the costs associated with AI and its rippling effects right now when it comes to RAM. And here pretty soon, I think solid state storage. Well, it appears behind the scenes, we're starting to hear about how much more expensive and difficult it is to source some of these parts. And I got to wonder what Nintendo's strategy is here going into year 2 and certainly year 3 for the Switch 2. We're going to go over all of that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. Now, a lot of this discussion was really spurred on by an article and report that was released by Bloomberg saying Nintendo sheds $14 billion in value after chip squeeze fears grow. So what's being cited here is the Nintendo stock, and that makes sense for Bloomberg. They're a very business-oriented publication. Clearly, they're generally speaking to investors with a lot of their findings and research. And they'll also talk to all kinds of analysts about what's going on in the market and should you invest or what's going to happen in the next couple of years. The market is always forward thinking, right? So a lot of times things we priced in when rates get cut or anything like that. So here we are now with Nintendo kind of up against it. Again, over the next 6 to 12 months, what will happen as they work to make a ton of Switch 2 systems. Nintendo's strategy right now, very, very clear. Get as many Switch 2 systems out there as possible to get people to move over from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2. They want the adoption rate to be quick, rapid, right? So here we are with Bloomberg saying the Kyoto-based gaming pioneer faces rapidly rising memory costs, which threaten to impair margins for its popular new Switch 2 console and potentially also curb market demand as accessory costs also rise. The price that Nintendo has to pay for 12 gigabytes of random access memory, or popularly known as RAM modules in the Switch 2, jumped 41% in the current quarter, said market intelligence firm TrendForce. So they also mentioned NAND storage aboard the new console also became nearly 8% pricier, with that cost bump also affecting add-on storage cards. And while a lot of discussion right now is around random access memory, the RAM, I think we're going to be shifting over soon enough to solid state drives. We're going to be talking about SD cards. All these things also going up. It's just right now RAM seems to be kind of the front and center because we're really seeing that on the consumer side with DDR5 memory, and people are seeing a 64 gig kit costs more than a PlayStation 5 console. Those kits are in the $500 or $600 range. It is absolute insanity out there right now. But I do believe next year, around this time next year, we'll probably be looking at solid state drives that have doubled in price. That's at least my prediction right now. So while the NAND side here is mentioned, clearly the focus is on the 41% jump in the current quarter when it comes to costs to procure RAM for a system that is using 12 gigabytes of it, right? And that comes down to the RAM modules, the suppliers that they're sourcing it from. There are a lot of moving parts behind the scene, and I'm a little surprised it's only 41%. And that might be because from our end, we see massive, massive jumps right now in the cost of RAM. But as they mentioned, the shares have declined for Nintendo in 7 out of 8 trading days in December, losing roughly $14 billion in market value as optimism about the Switch 2 fades in the face of a growing memory supply crisis. So this is, of course, tied to AI. We've talked about this at length, but I also think it's a bit deeper than just, they're concerned about memory supply crisis. I still think there's a lot of companies who are like, we should be moving capital around into AI. That I think is the biggest part, especially larger firms that can control or move the market. A lot of them are looking towards AI, and we got to stake our claim now before AI turns into super intelligence and it's all going to the moon. Or honestly, at this point, they all think it's going to like Mars or something with how crazy the valuations are getting. But yeah, it's going to move a lot of capital away from more traditional bets, more safer stocks, companies that have been around forever, the blue chips. Nintendo kind of falls in line with that, of course, especially in Japan. So when you have a more boring stock, I say boring based on the the trajectory and how much return it's going to get in the next 5 years versus something new and crazy like AI that's constantly doubling and tripling in value. Just look at Nvidia; they're worth so much. It's crazy when you look at their valuation versus all the top stocks right now in the U.S. It's Nvidia's this massive block, and then you have all the little other blocks that equal out to it. It's like, oh yeah, there's Walmart, there's like some of the biggest companies there next to it. It's wild stuff. But because of this and how much AI needs to actually work, and especially when it comes to data centers and just again the logistics behind it, it's eating up a lot of the parts that would be used for more consumer level products like your Switch 2, like the PlayStation 5, and like the Xbox. And this is a big challenge right now for Nintendo and will be a big challenge for Sony, especially with the PlayStation 6. These two companies, Nintendo or Sony, are very, very focused on hardware. Like they're hardware first still. Sony's, I understand, getting closer and closer to, well, you can play PlayStation games elsewhere, but they do still have a big focus on creating a high-end box and selling it. Nintendo is just, Nintendo would probably rather go out of business rather than see Mario on a PlayStation or on a PC or something at this rate. They're still very old school in that mentality. Microsoft's just, whatever. I mean, if it works on your smart fridge, awesome. We'll ship it there. So that's it. Of course, many different strategies here that are being merged together in this video game umbrella right now. But because of this, Nintendo is going to have to figure out a strategy, even as mentioned here, right? Where we have Bloomberg reach out, get quotes and stuff from different analysts, from Pelham Smithers of Pelham Smithers Associates. The rise in NAND prices is starting to really impact Express SD, secure digital card prices. A 256 gigabyte Express SD card costs $90 on Amazon. This is effectively a cost that Nintendo has passed on to the gamer. I would recommend maybe the ON SD card. I get they're looking at Amazon as being the probably the one that's going to get the most traffic in terms of people just going online and buying these for the holidays. And yes, Express SD cards they're just expensive outright, and it's kind of required now for the Switch too. Especially when you look at how many games are just game key cards, and that will at times take up 50, 60, 70 gigabytes. Some of these games getting pretty big. I mean, Skyrim just got that Switch 2 edition. You need to just download the new one and it's 52 gigabytes. And you're just like, whoa, Skyrim is 52 gig. That was fast. Jeez. There goes a good chunk of your storage. You don't get the full 256. So all of a sudden, here comes Skyrim that takes up 25% of your storage. Just like that. It's wow. Okay. And then you get to the sports games. They do mention EA here as well. Yeah. Some of those sports games like Madden, they take up a lot. They do. But they say here, because they're talking about the Black Friday sale that we went over that went live on Cyber Monday, where Walmart knocked down the cost of the Mario Kart World Bundle $50. They seem surprised by this, saying one of the surprises around Black Friday was seeing the Switch 2 plus Mario Kart World Bundle being offered online at a $50 discount, which essentially meant that you got the Mario Kart game for free. That'd be correct because it was already a $50 discounted game then. $50 off, it is free. You wouldn't expect it to be discounted this close to the holiday season. So here's the way I saw this. It was like a week-long sale that happened. It was Walmart who went first with it, and it felt like they went, okay, we're going to loss lead with something. What gets eyes on the website? What will get people talking about it? We'll knock $50 off the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World Bundle. And it certainly got people talking. I mean, it was all over social media. I made quick YouTube shorts about it because I said, hey, if you're looking to get one, it's effectively Mario Kart World for free. So I'm sure they got quite a bit of traffic. Amazon clearly noticed it as they price matched it. So it seemed like they sold through a bunch of their systems as well. But it was a way to garner up traffic. You can absolutely look at it as, wow, Mario Kart World Bundle for the Switch 2 is already on sale? I thought that was a hot item. Why is it already on sale? Must be because no one's buying it. I don't think that's the case. I think Nintendo is going to show up once again with a big number to report in second week of February, when they do discuss their financial quarter that we're currently in. But it's pretty clear. Walmart looked at it and said, this will work if we knock it down $50. And then they just sold a bunch of Switch 2 systems. Still, though, the analyst seems to look at that as a negative. I've done that before with products where I would loss lead, even in like a smaller chain of stores back then. So this isn't new. This is like a tried and true method that would get people in the door. It actually is one of the biggest things that holds up the idea of Black Friday outright is we're going to discount a bunch of stuff, get people in the doors and excited to spend more money. Consumerism, right? So, but here's the thing. While a lot of us are looking at the Switch 2 as this thing's going up in price, and I would be shocked if we went through 2026 and we didn't have the baseline Switch, the $450 model now, at $500. I'd be shocked if that was not the case. So it's going to be difficult for Nintendo to figure that out if with RAM prices now 40% up, just the cost behind the scenes to get this RAM and put it into the system, and then the Flash NAND going up, because I think it's going to go up even further throughout 2026. And I think Sony is going to be dealing with this as well. Microsoft doesn't care. They just, whatever, it's going up. Who cares? It's going up in price. How many Xboxes are we selling anyway? So I think Sony is going to deal with that and I kind of feel like the PS5 will start at $550, and then we see the disc-based model at $600. Difficult to figure this out. But here's the thing that I think is really, really throwing a bit of a wrench into Nintendo's plans. It's actually going to be in Japan. So right now, Nintendo has been moving a lot of stock, all right, in Japan when it comes to the Switch 2. And a lot of that's because of their cheaper region-locked model, right? So you can see here just last week, 203,000 Switch 2 systems sold, putting it over 3 million sold in its first year. I mean, really in its first 6 months, right? That is a tremendous amount of systems to roll through already. They're coming up on halfway to the PlayStation 5's lifetime amount in Japan. They're probably going to catch it by the end of this year, like the halfway mark. So that's really impressive. But a lot of that does have to do with the fact that the Switch 2 is cheaper in Japan because they can region lock it. They don't deal with any of the tariffs necessarily that were happening with the US that seem to also bleed over into the accessories here in the US. And it just made it more and more difficult to move a significant number of Switch 2 systems. But in Japan, the idea of RAM going up as a cost will absolutely affect it. And all of a sudden, Nintendo's region-locked cheap system in Japan is not looking as cheap anymore. So they're going to have to get creative. And it's tough because it's not like you're going to go, oh, now the system has 8 gigabytes of RAM, because developers create for a specific configuration with these consoles, and you have to sort of stick through it. So while you can come up with a Switch 2 Lite and maybe cut down on the need for a $100-some-odd dock and any of the components that go into working out, switching between TV and handheld mode, and then you remove the Joy-Cons, you make it one piece, maybe that could be a solution for them to expedite that somewhat to where maybe that could be out in 2027, just to try to get that rolling along so that they can have a cheaper alternative as the Switch 1 continues to phase out, because this is going to get interesting again throughout 2026 across the board, but certainly with Nintendo, who is working to push out as many Switch 2 systems as possible, get them into the hand of consumers, because the Switch 1, while it is fading out, Nintendo has already mentioned all their development has moved over to the Switch 2. So they kind of need people to sell to, and I'm going to be curious to see what their strategy is here going into 2026 and then into 2027. Year 2 and year 3 are critical for these companies, and Nintendo, they got some figuring out to do. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below in the comments, with Nintendo facing increasing costs around important components going into the Switch 2, and how do they work this out when it comes to a price increase, or is there something else they can do to kind of even out things behind the scenes? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.